Welcome everybody to the Ironman 70.3 St. George North American Championship highlights for the final time, sadly, as this race is no longer on the calendar going forward. But wow, did we have some stacked start lists, especially on the men's side going into this one. Obviously, a lot of them eager to get one more race on this iconic course. And the big names, of course, were three-time winner Lionel Sanders, defending champion and course record holder Sam Long, as well as the favorite, you'd have to say, going into it, Magnus Ditlev, who started his season so well at Ironman South Africa. Could he top the Pro Series after this race? We'd have to wait and see. But as you might have noticed, Lionel was in the same wetsuit as Magnus today. His new partnership with Roka Wetsuits. A lot of the guys were actually in this wetsuit, so he's clearly looking to find every bit of gain he can in the swim right now, as so many races like this one have so many strong swim bikers. But without surprise, it was Olympic silver medalist Seth Ryder who got a gap pretty early on. Mark Dubrick tried to go with him, but wasn't able to hold his feet, and Seth would end up getting quite a sizable gap. One of the best swims we've seen in a while. Ended up putting 36 seconds into Mark Dubrick, who hasn't got the name The Shark for nothing. Mark swam still really well, as he was able to put in a minute to other strong swimmers like Justin Reale and Max Newman, who was making a return. But Seth stole the show in the swim, got himself a nice gap. Mark coming in behind, then trying to get out on the bike right away. These two guys having some issues in transition, Seth with his visor and Mark putting his helmet over his swim cap. Good thing he remembered to take that off. Kevin McDowell led out that second pack of 10 then, and the big headline there was that Magnus Ditlev had made it, which meant he had a gap on the likes of Lionel Sanders and Sam Long, who we all know would be coming from behind. Interestingly enough, there was a couple names missing from this pack. The main one was Matthew Marquardt, who didn't have a great race at Ironman Texas, and you definitely would expect him to be here at the front of this swim, but he was missing. He was down just ahead of Lionel's pack, and Lionel had a great swim, one of his best swims, he said.
I swam well. I could see Jackson Laundrie's cap the whole swim, which means I was swimming really good, well above my capacity, which you can only ask for that.
And next to him was Trevor Foley, who also had a lifetime best 70.3 swim. So obviously the work he's doing with Sean Jefferson is paying off. Unfortunately, the rest of his race didn't go to plan, but at least he has that to hang his hat on. And you would have thought that with Lionel, Cam Worth, and Trevor together, they would have worked together and made their way to the front eventually, but Lionel just left those guys in the dust and was the fastest mover on course by quite a margin for the majority of this entire bike ride. And it didn't take him long at all to catch up to this front pack, including Magnus Ditlev, who himself made his way to the front of this race pretty quickly. But man, he probably would have been surprised at the fact that Lionel was able to catch up that extra minute and make his way to him when he looked like he was pushing quite hard himself. Justin Reale was the only one able to go with Ditlev after Ditlev broke free from the large group of guys that came out of the water with him, which meant it was only Seth Ryder, Justin Reale, and Ditlev at the front of the race. And Justin himself did say it took max effort to stay with Ditlev, so the fact that Lionel was able to put time into both of these guys is seriously scary. And just as he caught these guys and overtook Justin had a bad blowout puncture on his rear tire, causing him to pull over, but lucky for him, the bike tech was right there with the spare wheel. He was able to get that changed out pretty quick, although it wasn't the most compatible back wheel for him, and sadly that would mean his chances of being competitive at this race were pretty much over. But he wasn't the only one who was going to have troubles this race. There was lots of guys struggling, likes of Matt McRoy suffering cramps on the bike, and he was one of those going into this race that I had my eyes on. But the big one who ended up having troubles was this man, Magnus Ditlev. He was going strong, was in the position he needed to be with Lionel, and I thought we were set for a major battle for the rest of this race. But unfortunately, it wasn't caught on broadcast, but he suffered a front flat tire, which he had one in the lead up to this race. These roads aren't kind to him, and that meant he lost a couple minutes right away, dropped back through the field. He was still within touching distance though of the front race when he got going again on this spare tire. But after that, you could tell something was off. I'm not sure what exactly it was, as when he was in this groove, you can see him passing Mark Dubrick here. It looked like he was going to be good to go as normal, but then we saw Mark passing Ditlev right away after that again, and that should never happen on the bike, with all respect to Mark. But yeah, something clearly off for him on this bike leg for the remainder, and that would put him out of contention, which meant Lionel was having the perfect day. He was out solo now, having dropped Seth at the front of this ride, and he was pushing some serious power because even Sam Long couldn't keep up with him no matter what he did. And to which Sam, after the race, explained a little bit, because of his bad swim, when he finally caught up in the group, he got caught in those dynamics that we often see cost these athletes a lot of time.
I was kind of mixed in the group, and I could tell we weren't quite setting the pace we needed to, but it was just, at that point the group was big, and I was wanting to make sure I didn't get a penalty, and kind of, yeah, just hoping other people, there were strong riders there, but if I wasn't the one setting the pace, frankly, we just weren't going fast enough. And then I realized, like, when we hit kind of Red Hills Parkway, I gotta go because the gap's getting too big if I'm gonna have any chance, and then I just had to go for it.
However, when they got to the Snow Canyon climb and Sam had broken away from his group, he was looking good. He was looking like Sam of last year, and we didn't know if Lionel had pushed too hard to get up to the spot that he was in. And the race certainly was not over, but it was slowly becoming a two-horse race between these two. But despite how good Sam looked going up this climb, Lionel was doing equally as well, and certainly had enough power left to motor back into town. He was captured on broadcast going over 53 miles an hour next to the motorbike. So he ended up coming into T2 with a 2-minute and 40-second lead over Sam Long. 4 minutes back then to Colin Shook, who was having a lifetime best day, only biking 3 minutes slower than Lionel, who broke Sam Long's bike course record. Interesting to see Sam's watts, which he shared on Strava as well, so you can imagine what Lionel was pushing. Behind them was Kevin McDowell, who's having a brilliant day. Seth Ryder then was right behind him. Jackson Laundry, Ben Hamilton, those all came into transition together. Cameron Worth not having his best day, coming in behind them with Jacob Burtwistle and Trevor Foley, as well as Max Newman. A fairly impressive comeback ride for him. How well could he run was the question. And further back then, Matthew Marquardt, another poor day for him, clearly suffering with some similar issues that he was having in Texas. But then onto the run, and it was anybody's game at this point, knowing how hard these guys pushed on the bike. Had Lionel pushed too hard. Somehow though, he had enough to hold off Sam. Clearly these guys are at about the same level on the run, as that gap stayed fairly similar the whole way through. Sam just running a little bit into Lionel at the end, but Lionel was pretty unchallenged, although he did look like he was suffering quite a bit.
And I rode really hard, probably too hard, and paid for it, and I felt absolutely horrible on the run every single step. I was just fortunate enough that everyone else rode hard and felt horrible too.
But what a victory for him. And even if Magnus hadn't have flatted, I still think Lionel would have taken it today. He looked pretty unstoppable. Magnus ended up running a 1:14.53 split, but we don't know how much he went for it on the run. You never know if he was chasing those Pro Series points still. He's ended up in a situation like Christian with a bad result at a 70.3 like this, and we'll wonder if he'll be able to sneak in another 70.3 as the season gets busier and busier towards Kona. But yeah, Lionel, 2 minutes and 13 seconds in the end, up on Sam. Colin Shook then rounding out the podium, 6 minutes back. Ferocious effort by him. And then I have to give a shout out to Kevin McDowell, his best result yet. Remember, he's a Tokyo Olympic medalist, some guy we've got to keep an eye out on for the future. Jake Birtwistle then, I thought he would finish a little bit higher here, but clearly this tough course took it out of him. He ended up in 5th. But Lionel, 2 wins out of 2. I should stop ever doubting this guy. He is unstoppable at the 70.3 distance. I believe this is his 33rd win now, and that's just building his legacy. But he says he doesn't want to be remembered for 70.3 wins. He wants to be known for the Ironman. So can he make these performances transition over to the full distance? Let me know. But editing Travis here, jumping in for a quick second saying, if you like these videos, if you watch them regularly, I know a lot of you do, it would mean so much to me if you consider joining the channel with that join button next to the subscribe and supporting me for $1 a month or so, or whatever you could do, at least hitting the subscribe button. I'm not sure if I can keep doing these indefinitely. I would love to. I have so much passion for this sport, but I do need your help. So if you are able to and can support for just that little amount, if there's a lot of you that do it, it would add up and it'll allow me to do this. This does take a lot of time and effort, and getting to these races when I can and getting permission and everything like that. It adds up to be quite a bit. So if you'd like to see it continue, please let me know, and let's keep this sport growing. But with that out of the way, let's jump into this fantastic women's race that happened. We had a lot of the North American women that we see racing each other often together, like Paula Findlay, Jackie Herring, Danielle Lewis, Lisa Becerras, all those names were here. A lot of them had raced in Oceanside and put on a good show there. So I was excited to see if the results would change up from that race, because we had a couple of big names jumping in here as well. Jocelyn McCauley was continuing her comeback to racing. She could change things up on the bike. Chelsea Sodaro was here after her sickness in Texas. I had her as a sneaky pick for the win, but that wouldn't be the case. We'll get into that in a second. Then we also had Victoria Lopez, who I thought was a big dark horse for this one, although she did suffer a stress edema, I believe, on her foot in the lead up to Oceanside, so she wasn't able to race there, but she impacted the race right away with a blistering swim, just like Seth Ryder, separated herself and got a good gap coming into transition. Behind her then was Lotte Wilms, and behind Lotte was Paula Findlay with Chelsea Sodaro right on her heels. So great swim for her, just where she'd want to be. And with a lot of work she's done recently on the bike with her new Ventum as well, she would have hoped she could have gone with Paula, but immediately she said her body was still feeling that sickness after Texas and would just not cooperate with her, so she wasn't able to compete at all. So we still have to wait and see for the Chelsea of old that we've seen before. But the big surprise was really that Victoria was able to maintain her position on the bike for so long. Paula thought she'd be able to catch her a lot earlier, but Victoria held her own and just kept going. And at this point of the race, we thought maybe Victoria might be able to clinch this one. And it was surprising to hear after the race that Paula didn't have the confidence if she was going to be able to pull off the win for this race. And
super confident coming in that I could win again.
And you just have to wonder if Paula was thinking the same thing with Victoria up the road. Might she have thought that Victoria's short course speed was going to be too much for her, although she did say she enjoyed having her up there to chase. Otherwise, unsurprisingly, behind them, big movers in the field were Danielle Lewis. She had a good swim, ended up with a pack this time that she was able to work with, and then, was slowly picking off one by one. Jackie Herring was riding well, but she wasn't able to stay with Paula like she was in Oceanside. This slightly tougher course being a little bit too hard for her to hang on. And then Lisa Becerras was motoring like she did in Oceanside, but also like Jackie, not quite as good as she was doing there and not able to get the gap on Paula like she had there in Oceanside. And Jocelyn McCauley, of course, was looking good on the bike, but she did say that she was holding less power than she usually does in the Ironman. So when it finally clicks for Jocelyn again, she will be a force to be reckoned with on the bike. But eventually, as expected, Paula did catch Victoria, but she wasn't able to drop her. So Victoria was definitely in some good bike shape, and we got to look out for her for the future. But unfortunately, none of us knew, including Ironman, which was kind of a disappointment, that she was about to pull out on the run. She wasn't planning to finish it. She was going to play it safe because she has T100 San Francisco coming out. She got a wild card for that race. So she ended up telling Paula right as they got through transition that she wasn't going to finish the run. And sure enough, when Paula passed her, she decided to drop out, which was kind of a bummer because from then on out, we knew it was Paula's race for the win. She had a few minutes gap to Danielle Lewis, who was having a great race coming back from a disappointing race in Texas. But yeah, we just knew it was too much of a gap for her to overcome. And then it was several minutes back from her to Jackie Herring. So the podium was pretty much set. I was keeping my eye out on the positions behind. Sadly, Jocelyn didn't have much of a run in her, so she fell back quite a bit. Same with Lisa Pacheras, but she still picked up her 70.3 world slot, which was her goal. So it'd be great to see her develop over the course of the year. But two women who were running really well was Simone Mitchell and Lydia Russell. They were flying on the run, ended up picking up 4th and 6th respectively, and then Lotte Willems ended up in 5th place, which would be good for her in the running for the Pro Series. But yeah, Paula Findlay once again just too strong, too consistent. Probably didn't have to go to the well again, which will be good for her in the lead up to San Francisco, her first T100 race. And you just have to wonder if Danielle Lewis is just biting her teeth a little bit, wanting to beat Paula because she can definitely bike with her, run with her. It's just that swim deficit that she has to overcome every time that is killing her at the minute. But a great result for her, gaining one spot on the podium than where she was at in Oceanside. But that's how the racing shook up this week. I will be covering 70.3 Aix-en-Provence next week, which has another incredible lineup, including the Norwegians. So make sure you come back for that one. And like I said, if you're able to, please support the channel and don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you in the next one.